My name is Michael Arvay, and if you were looking for me during my childhood, you'd likely find me lost somewhere between the notes. For me, music wasn't just something playing in the background, it was my reality, a world I lived in 24 hours a day. I still remember that small toy electric keyboard that first revealed the magic of creating sound. It was enchanting, but my eyes were always wandering toward my father's old guitar. When the house went quiet and no one was watching, I would pluck at strings and feel those vibrations travel all the way to my fingertips. Back then, I had no idea that this childhood curiosity would grow into a struggle that would define me. I wanted to master that world, to understand it, and to be a part of it, even though I didn't yet know exactly what path fate had prepared for me. Then came the day that was supposed to change everything. My heart was pounding as I used my hard-earned savings to secretly buy an old bass guitar, a Yamaha. It had its years, but to me, it was the most precious treasure in the world. However, the joy didn't last long. At home, instead of understanding, I hit a wall of cold resistance. My parents forbade me from playing, and I had to return the instrument I loved so much with a heavy heart. But then, fate dealt me another blow. The owner refused to give me my money back, leaving me with no instrument and no savings. When I eventually managed to get it back, my father took it without hesitation and left it at a pawn shop. I stood there empty-handed, feeling a deep sense of injustice. But the more they took it away, the stronger my conviction grew. I would never give up on music. That bass guitar lay in the dark of the pawn shop for 6 months. For half a year, I walked past it, knowing it was gathering dust somewhere in there. It was a time of uncertainty, a time when I had to prove this wasn't just a passing whim. And then came that unexpected moment. My father saw that I wasn't letting go, and he made a deal with me. I could have the guitar back, but on one condition: I had to enroll in music school. At 13, I walked into that classroom, not out of obligation, but with immense determination. I practiced diligently in my room, wanting to be the best in every lesson because I knew the price I had paid for this chance. I didn't know yet that I'd find my true voice in the tenor saxophone, but the foundations of my journey were laid in struggle and discipline. Entering music school was like stepping into a new universe for me. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my feelings or playing by ear anymore, it was about the rules that gave music its depth. Music theory, which many fear, was for me the key to understanding why certain notes together give you goosebumps. I soaked up every piece of knowledge, and my diligent home practice sessions began to take on a completely different dimension. I wasn't just playing anymore, I began to understand the structure and logic hidden behind the music. It was a time of awakening, where passion started to turn into true craftsmanship. Every lesson moved me closer to the moment when I would discover something that would forever change my perception of musical expression. My hunger for knowledge later led me to Prešov, to a jazz music school. There, a world I had only dreamed of opened up to me. I spent 5 intense years there that truly shaped me as a musician. I gained top-tier harmonic and melodic knowledge, which is essential in jazz. But most importantly, it wasn't just dry theory in a classroom. The school gave us space in what we called jazz combos. These were small bands where we could immediately put our fresh knowledge into practice. It was there, in the middle of playing together, that I began to get acquainted with jazz improvisation. It was a fascinating sense of freedom, learning how to tell my own story through the instrument in real time while reacting to others. After my years in the jazz world, the first professional concerts and paid gigs started coming in. Music had officially become my career. My journey led me to the conservatory, where I immersed myself in the world of classical music and the study of the double bass. I spent thousands of hours behind that instrument, grinding away at technique and absorbing the depth of the classical masters. Yet, in the middle of all that effort, a strange realization hit me. I discovered that although the double bass and bass guitar are incredible instruments, they weren't my native language. I felt that my inner self needed a different way of expression, something that would define me more accurately. I began searching for an instrument that could sing what I felt in my heart, and this search led me to something that would forever change my artistic DNA. That's how I got my first saxophone, a brand new Yamaha YTS-62. Although I was still officially studying double bass at the conservatory, every spare moment and all my energy began to belong to the keys. Every day, locked in a practice room, I discovered a new world. It fascinated me how natural it felt. Thanks to jazz school and years of hard work, I already possessed deep knowledge of harmony, melody, and sight reading. The theory and practice were already inside me, I simply swapped strings for keys. Everything I had learned before suddenly poured into the saxophone. The transition was lightning fast because my musical foundation was rock solid. Finally, I felt that I wasn't just playing an instrument, but that the instrument was speaking for me. Over time, my passion for the double bass began to fade, and the saxophone took over more and more of my world. I started attending my first jam sessions, played in various bands, and felt that the sax was my true instrument. Eventually, I made a major decision: I left the conservatory. I saw no point in investing my time into something that didn't fulfill me. I rented a small practice room near my house, and that's where I spent every single day. Instead of sitting in classrooms, I ground away at my saxophone technique, played with bands, and took on various jobs to afford living my music. I was free, playing many hours a day, but this intense workload began to take its toll. My body started sending clear signals that something was wrong. My health deteriorated to the point where I had to leave the practice room and take a forced break from the saxophone. It was a difficult time, but music never left me. I continued playing bass guitar and electric piano, which my health allowed back then. It was during this period that I met my former wife. When I eventually returned to the saxophone, I started playing the alto. The alto sax held my attention for several years. It was an interesting period of searching, but eventually, I was drawn back to my beloved tenor. With this instrument by my side and a new life ahead of us, we decided to move abroad. We searched for our place, first in England, then in Germany, until the journey finally brought us to Austria, where I live to this day. Today, as I sit here in Austria, looking at my tenor saxophone, I realize just how long the journey has been. From that tiny keyboard in my father's guitar, through the dramatic months when my first bass guitar sat gathering dust in a pawn shop, to the thousands of hours spent searching for my true voice. This was the first part of my story, a chapter about fighting for music, about discipline, and about the courage to change direction when you feel your heart beating for a different instrument. But the journey doesn't end here. In the next episode, I'll tell you what it's like to start from zero in a foreign country, how I managed to return to music after a health-related break, and how my life sounds today. Thank you for listening to this first part. I am Michael Arvay, and I look forward to sharing more notes from my life with you in the next episode.